Hey, everybody. It's Mike. Thanks for watching Hobby Think Tank. I am also joined by Mike. It's Mike and Mike in the evening. And we are here posting this on Thursday, as we always do. This is actually the second Hobby Think Tank of the week. I know Mike wanted to say something about that briefly before we get started.
Yeah, so maybe this isn't every Thursday. It's supposed to be every Thursday, and last week we had a technology snafu, so we actually released last week's episode, which was great on card shows and just kind of what makes a great card show. And John and Danny did a great job talking through that. It was a fascinating episode. So if you haven't seen that, that actually got posted on Sunday. So yeah, man, this has been so much fun. Just the four of us kind of coming up with ideas and thinking about topics, and then just, hey, let's talk about them for half an hour or so.
Yeah. And the text chat is great too. Like, I threw out a couple of ideas at you this week for this week's episode, and you said, no, Mike, those are terrible. But But no, we ended up going with a variation of one of them. I brought up the idea of card show etiquette. And I think because you were already doing, John and Danny were doing the card show episode, we decided to go with how to negotiate in card buying or card selling as well. I'm more of the card buying, but we're going to talk a little bit about how to negotiate, how not to negotiate as well. And I also want to encourage you strongly, put some comments in under the video here. Let us know, what are your tactics for negotiating? Do you negotiate at all? Some people don't feel comfortable doing that, which is fine. And if you're a dealer, we'd also be interested in knowing what your tactics are for negotiating.
Well, I have some very strong opinions about this as we were talking, and then I started thinking about it. And I mean, I have a absolute hardcore hobby mantra: never pay sticker. If you pay sticker, you're the sucker in the deal. And there's a whole lot behind that, which we can get into. But so obviously, I'm a pro negotiator guy. Where do you stand on everything, Mike?
I wouldn't say I'm a pro, but I feel very comfortable with negotiating.
I meant for pro
Oh, I am
or
very
against.
pro.
Okay.
I almost never pay sticker. At the card shop I went to on Saturday, I paid sticker because the guy working there, who used to own the shop, says that when he's working now, he's not allowed to negotiate, which I know isn't true, but I just knew he wasn't going to negotiate with me because I've tried it several times. It's a great tactic from him, but I also knew I was getting really good deals on these things anyway. But it's very rare that I will just pay sticker. I feel like, and dealers, let me know if I'm wrong. Most dealers price negotiation into their prices, and occasionally you'll hear things like, "I'm into this for 90, which is why I have it priced at 100." But um, you know, I don't know. It's such a strange thing to tell your buyers, "I'm into this for X dollars," when you might have bought it as prices rose, and now prices are coming way down. And you should, if you're looking to sell, you should be willing to move it.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by what seems to be this, conundrum of dealers, in that to me, they're there to sell cards. I'm there to buy cards. Somewhere in the middle is probably a price we can both be comfortable with. And, I just sometimes I find it hard that dealers are just unwilling to budge on certain things. I mean, there was a guy that was downright rude to me at the National last year, trying to negotiate on a 63 tops Pete Rose. A card, by the way, which is not one of those, oh my gosh, I have to have it. It's a card I'd like to own at some point, but I feel like it's way overpriced for what it is.
Yeah.
And so I mean, Pete Rose, as much as we all probably think he should be, he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's a, floating heads rookie card. It's not terribly attractive in and of itself. And so I've just never been compelled to pay what it goes for. And I was negotiating with a guy, and he was over comps, and he's like, I didn't come all this way and spend all this money to negotiate with you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, then I'll talk to you later. There's
Yep.
500 more Pete Rose rookies on the national floor, so you're not the only one. And that's the biggest thing that I try to encourage people when they're, thinking about it. If it's Again, unless it's a one of one or some super rare, crazy thing, you're going to find another one. And so whatever, dealer X has it priced at, you can go to dealer Y and either pit them against you. I got all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different ways that I do this, but there are ways to, it's not the only one. You'll find another one. Walk 2 aisles down, and if it's
Right.
modern or ultra modern, forget about it. They're everywhere, right? So,
Yeah. So one thing I do at a big show like the National is I have a notepad on my phone. It's the app, the notes or whatever it's called.
yep.
And if I see a card that I really want, but I'm not sure about the price, and it seems like it might be overpriced, but I'm just really not sure, and there's no internet at the National, as we all know, or it's hard, I will take a note of what table it's at, the card and the table, and then I'll go around, and if I find it for a better price, oh, and I put the price in there too. If I find it for a better price, then I delete it from the app because I've bought the card I wanted. But in talking to various dealers at card shows, a lot of them say they price things a little bit higher because they want people to feel like they've won the deal and walk away with a good feeling about buying from them. And so they'll price an $80 card at $100, knowing that they're probably going to come down to 80 on it. And then the buyer feels good about it, and it's just been a good experience for both.
That makes I mean, there's a lot of good psychology there. That makes a lot of sense, right? Because both people want to walk away happy. I try to make it where I'm the only one walking away happy. And I know that sounds selfish, maybe. I don't know. Uh, Again, I don't have to buy their card, right? Believe
do
it or not,
you
I go ahead.
do you worry about building a relationship? Like
No,
you're in Dallas, you go to the Dallas card show, and you go to those every time they're open. Are you not worried about maintaining a relationship with those dealers?
no. Money talks.
Okay.
If at the next show where I got the better of a dealer at one show, at the next show, if I have enough money and I'm willing, and again, they don't have to sell me the card either. Again, there's plenty of dealers. I'm not, and I do have good relationships with some dealers. I'm just not worried about. You asked if I was worried about it or if I'm concerned about it. No. Do I have good relationships with several dealers? Absolutely. It's not that I'm against having good relationships. I'm not going out of my way. I'm not going to overpay for a card just to help the guy out.
So now you said that you want to be the only one walking away with a good feeling from the sale. Do you feel that way with those dealers that you have a good relationship with too?
Yeah, because I know they're into the cards for way less than I even paid. So they,
Right.
again, unless you got into vintage, which is where I, live and where I'm buying, most of these dealers have had this inventory for a long time.
Yeah.
And the old adage of you said it earlier, I'm into this card for X dollars. And so I can only let it go for that or slightly more. And my answer to that is not my problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
100%.
you bought at the wrong time. And again, if they're just unwilling at that point, I just walk away. We have leverage. The buyer has the leverage. We think, well, they have the card, they have the leverage. We want the card. No, they're not the only one with the card. There's plenty more. Again, vintage is not rare.
Yeah.
Most vintage is not rare. That's probably a
Right.
more accurate way to say that. But
Right.
it's, you can find 53 tops Mickey Mantles all over a card show floor.
Yeah.
And again, you have the leverage because they want your money and you have it. Um, so at the end of the day, I don't think we use that leverage enough as consumers, especially with cards. Now, let me ask you a question, Mike. Do you think it's different negotiating at a card show versus a shop? Have you had different experiences with those two different places?
I think that card shows the dealers are trying to clear out inventory more so than a card shop is. Now, obviously, a card shop is also trying to clear out inventory, but I find that a lot of dealers at card shows have taken things that they just really want to get rid of right now, or they think they can sell right now. Whereas at a card shop, they have a much higher inventory, depending on the shop, of course. In Maine, there's not a whole lot of foot traffic in card shops, but in card shows, there is, and dealers know. Have you seen different experiences? between the
I
two?
have. Shows are much easier to negotiate at, although I always negotiate even at a shop, but I get a lot of the shop owner will tell me, hey, um, of course, Norman, like he doesn't
Norm.
bark all day, but when I'm shooting a video, of course, he's barking. But the card shop owner is like, I have overhead, I have people I'm paying, I have all this, my expenses are a lot more. And it seems redundant, but it's the same answer. Not
It's
my
not your problem.
okay, not my
Yep.
problem. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, you chose to have this shop and all this stuff, and I'm glad you're here and all. I hope you do well and are successful. But I'm here to get the best deal that I can, and negotiating just makes sense. If you want to stretch your hobby dollars as far as you can, buy as many cards that you can, you're going to have to be willing to negotiate unless you just planted a money tree in your backyard. In Maine, are there money trees back there? Or,
No, not yet. They haven't come. We're a
okay.
little behind the times in Maine.
Yeah, we don't have them here in Texas either.
Oh,
So
okay.
uh, the drought killed them all. You know. Yeah.
So, do you have any small card shows near you, or is it all big?
Well, the Dallas Card Show, obviously, but then every other month that the Dallas show isn't going on, there's a show in Arlington, but it's still 200 plus tables, so it's not small. I think there are some smaller ones, but that's usually not going to be a place I go to because I'm probably not going to find a ton of stuff there. But what about you?
Yeah, in Maine, there's one show that happens a couple times a year that's pretty big. It's I would say over 100 tables, and for Maine, that's good. The one that I go to most months out of the year in Portland, Maine, is maybe 40 tables, is my guess. And it's the same dealers every single month, and they bring the same inventory every single month. And if a dealer is bringing the same inventory month after month after month, they should be more willing to negotiate on those items, because you would think they'd want to get rid of them. But a lot of these dealers are stubborn. Some dealers I find are just displaying their personal collections, and they want you to see how cool it is. And they've priced them at 4 times comps, and you say, hey, it's not even worth negotiating with those people.
Yeah, that's another good point to make. There are cards that I will look at a show that they are just so over comps that it's like I don't even bother. I don't even
Yeah.
ask
Nope.
because it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you got to cut that in half for me to, and I know they're not going to do it, and so
Yeah.
I love the. This is pretty fantastic when you see a card and it's got a certain grade, or it's let's say PSA, and it's a 4. Well, man, that's the best looking 4. Like, yeah, I priced it more because it's just a great looking 4. I'm like, but it's still a 4. Like,
Yeah. To some extent, I agree that there is a small markup when it's a well-centered 4, and maybe that it was downgraded because of the back. But like you said, it's still a 4, and the markup shouldn't be very high. It's still lower than a 5.
yeah, and yeah, it should never be priced more than a 5 or a four and a
Or as
half,
much as, yeah.
right, or as much as, and that's a great point, and I do see that. Oh man, this is way undergraded. No, I'm telling you, I just got an order in. I'm telling you, those cards are graded what they are.
Yeah.
Kind of it is what it is. And if you want to try to spin the wheel of PSA and send a card back to because you think it deserves a bump, then knock yourself out. That's not what I'm going to do. So it's a 4, and it's going to be a 4, whatever card it is. So I do find that like I don't even have like a point. Like some people will say, all right, I'm going to try to get 30% off comps or 20% off comps or even 10% off comps. I don't go into a negotiation thinking a number in terms of like a percentage that I'm trying to get off. I look at comps and I think, what would I be willing to pay for this card? It's kind of that simple.
Yeah.
If comps are at 80 and I can try to be at 60, great. I
Yeah.
don't I'd rather buy it at 60 from in person than 80 on eBay and then pay tax and shipping. And that's another funny bit of guerrilla math that dealers try to do. Oh, well, you don't have to pay tax. And I turn right around and go, well, you don't have to pay eBay fees either. So
Yeah.
that's actually more than my tax.
And I'm
So
paying you in cash, and I'm guessing you're not going to pay tax on it either.
right. So I guess my point of that is don't be afraid to be assertive. I don't want to use the word aggressive, and I don't certainly you don't want to be rude. Um, but you definitely need to be assertive. You need to say, "This is what I want to pay for this card." And if they're not willing to do it, it doesn't mean you can't. My dad always said, "Make them tell you you're crazy at least twice when
That's
negotiating."
that's a great negotiating tactic.
So if a card's at 100, I might offer $50. Oh, well, I can't do that. That's usually the response. Well,
Well, what
okay.
can you do?
So what can you do? Oh, I could do 80 and maybe I would be willing to pay 90, but I'm going to start with a price that if they said yes, I'm just going to go, yep. That happened to me at a chasing cardboard. We were just it hasn't the episode hasn't aired yet, but we were looking at some cards and I had a number in my mind that man, if I can get it for this, I'm going to feel like thrilled. Thinking he was going to when I said, "Hey, what do you want for these cards?" Um then oh my gosh, if I'd love to be at this number. He came right in at that number, which I thought was really cheap, by the way. I'm a cheapskate. And he came right. I was like, "Yep." I didn't even bother to because it was so cheap. I'm like, "Yep, I'll do that." I was thinking hundreds more, and he came in a number that I was very. You'll have to watch the episode, but it was good, and very unusual for me. But um, I have so many thoughts running through my head. So make them tell you you're crazy, right? Give
Yep.
them a number that just there's no way they're going to take that. Okay, fine. That tells you where you're at, and you can kind of move from there. But you definitely won't get that super low price if you don't ask.
Yeah.
100%.
So you're at a show. Does it
Mm.
matter if the show is busy or slow?
I think it matters more to the dealer.
Right?
I think my price is already going to be what it is.
Yep.
I
So
find that, yeah. No, go ahead.
you're at a show and it's slow. You're there halfway through the show and it's very, very slow there. And you go up and you've got $100 card and you say to them, I'll give you $50 for it. And they say, you're crazy. You got to walk away at that point, right? You just say, okay, thanks. Good luck. And then they're going to say to you, what?
Oh wait, well, hey, I can do 80, right? Yeah, they'll do
Right.
something. I've literally had people chase me down the aisle when I walk away, refusing to, go up to their price,
Yeah.
and they will come chasing me down. Okay, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right. I,
Yeah. Especially when it's slow at the show. They've got a customer right there who wants that card. They want to sell that card. You have to be willing to walk away, even if you really want it. And that's another thing is when you really want a card, every dealer you walk up to a table, they're going to ask you, "What are you looking for today?" Do you tell them?
yeah, vintage baseball. I'm very generic, right?
Yeah. Okay. So what if you're looking for a 63 Pete Rose? Do you tell them you're looking specifically for that card?
No, not that I wouldn't necessarily. I just haven't. I've never been looking for only one particular card. So
I feel like that kind of puts you in a bit of a bind. It paints you into a corner to tell them the specific card. You walk up to a big vintage table and you say, "I'm looking for a 63 Pete Rose." They know you want it. They're less likely to negotiate or negotiate down less than what they might have had you just said, "I'm only here for vintage."
there's two sides to that though, and I'll tell you, again, personal experience. When I was buying my 54 tops Hank Aaron rookie, I went up to a guy who didn't have he had a bunch of vintage, and I said, "Oh man, it's a shame. I'm looking for a Hank Aaron rookie." He goes, "Hang on," and he had like five behind the thing, and I ended up buying one of them. So not being specific, you may or may not. If you see kind of the similar stuff that you're looking for, oh man, it's a shame you don't have
Yeah.
this. They might have it. They can't because of space limitations put everything out on the table at any given time. And they'll be selling cards. They want to be able to restock that showcase or that inventory. So they're keeping stuff back. If you are specific, you might have a chance to buy something that's maybe not even on the table yet for anyone else to buy.
So I'm going to preempt a comment that somebody will surely put in the comments on this. Do you think some dealers know who you are and are more willing to negotiate with you because you're on Hobby Think Tank, you're on Bench Clear Media, you're on Chasing Cardboard?
Yes, and I take full advantage of that.
Yes.
Uh, I- you know, at the Burbank show, someone was great and literally gave me a Dirk Nowitzki rookie, just to say thanks, appreciate what you do. It was a
Yeah.
dealer, and he's like, "You're great for the hobby, love what you do. Just take this card." And I
Love
was like,
that.
eh, "I'm grateful." It's very
Yeah.
humbling, by the way, too. Um, and so I don't feel bad about that. That just kind of, I'm not making them do that. I'm not
N-
asking for that,
Nope. Nor do you expect it.
nor do I expect it. Absolutely true. But if they are willing to do that, as to be gracious and thankful and whatever, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
be a gracious receiver of that and say thank you
Yeah.
and be very grateful.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me ask you this in
Yeah.
terms of negotiating. When you're at a show and you see a card and there's no prices, which, you know,
Hate that.
every one of us hate it. I've never met anyone that goes, man, I love when there's not any prices anywhere, because you have to ask, what do you want for it? They have to look it up, yada, yada, whatever. Or they look at their sheet where they have their inventory and everything marked down with prices. If there's no price, I always joke around and they're like, yeah, hang on a second. I'm like, well, no price. It's free. I mean, it's $0. I'll take it,
Yeah.
and it kind of lightens the mood. Ha ha, very funny. And of course, I know no one's going to say it's free, but then they'll say something like, so, yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at that in a while. What do you have in mind, or what's your offer? How do you react to that situation,
Uh,
or has that ever happened to you?
yeah. It happens more often than it should. And I will go ultra low. And that's the only time where I feel okay going insultingly low on a price is when they haven't priced it and they're asking me. So if it's $100 card, I'll be like, oh, I don't know what this is worth. Probably $10. I know it's $100 card, but I'm going to see where can we go. And if I say, yeah, probably $10, then maybe they'll say, well, let's do 50. And then that's kind of starts the negotiation.
Right.
Does it always work? No. But these are the types of things you got to be ready to walk away from.
Yeah.
And if we can just talk for a moment about people who don't price their cards, most of the time you have half of the cards are not priced, and then some cards are. And you can tell by the prices on the ones that have stickers. Are they way overpriced? Then it's probably not even worth talking about the ones that don't have prices on them.
Right. Especially if it's busy, because God knows how long it'll take to get their attention, for
Yeah.
them to get you a price. And then they say some astronomical number, and you're like, well, that just wasted 10 minutes of my floor time, you know, uh,
Yeah.
to find out that there's no way I'm going to buy this card. Right. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. What do you think are for people, some barriers that they might have to even negotiating at all? What
I
types
think
of
it's
things come in mind?
Yeah, I think it's comfort level. It's there's probably some social anxiety there. There's probably some fear of upsetting a dealer. Um, I go to the same show. I see the same dealers every single month, and I've made friends with a lot of them because I buy stuff from them every single month. And some people probably don't want to upset those dealers because they've made friends with those dealers. But I think part of that is the give and take of them saying, I've got this at 80, and I just say, yeah, I've got it at 60, and see where you go from there. And it works well for me.
Yeah. I think, like you said, not wanting to upset people. I think the desire not to insult people is very strong
Yeah.
with human beings in general. We typically don't want to be rude, and that's a good thing for human nature, to not want to, you know, be that way. And again, I think you can have fun with it. That my point of negotiating is have fun with it, to telling people, hey, I know it's not kind of your thing, but you can make it kind of fun. And at the end of the day, especially if I think chatting up dealers as you're looking at a card and trying to packaging a deal together, I think that's another big thing. Let me talk about packaging up in a second. bundling things together. But,
Yeah.
you know, having fun with it, chatting them up, saying, "Hey, I really, this is the last car." And if first of all, never lie to a dealer. That's just not cool to do. Period.
Right.
In
Of
life.
course.
But man, this is the last Willie McCovey that I need to finish my run. And I've been doing it for years, and I'm doing all these Hall of Famers and this and that. Tell your story, make a connection with that dealer, and you're probably, every couple of minutes knocking a few dollars off the price that you're going to end up paying for that card,
Yeah.
because dealers are usually collectors too, and they know that drive, they know that passion, they understand it, and they want to help collectors complete sets, complete runs, complete player collections, all these things. They want to be the guy that helps you do that, because that's a good feeling for a dealer.
Yep.
I've talked to plenty of dealers. That's kind of the big rush for them, not selling a big card, but helping out a collector. And so play to that. Again, don't lie, don't be deceptive, but explain why you want that card. Why does that card need to be in your collection? For whatever reason that might be. And you're probably going to save yourself some money.
Yep. I always say what it is that I collect. So if I find a Diamond Kings autograph, for instance, that's one of my top PC items, I'll tell them, "Oh, this is the last one I need for my 1986,"
Right.
and see what they say. If it's overpriced, you make that personal connection, like you said.
So bundling is another great, I wouldn't call it a negotiating tactic. It's a strategy, right? It's a way to give yourself even more leverage. Not only am I buying one or two or five cards or 10 cards, now I've become a more important customer for this dealer. And usually, hey, I can help you move 10 of these cards if we can agree on a price. They're going to be more apt to listen, more apt. If you're just buying a single card, I find that dealers are less likely to move as big as I want them to move. So I'm always looking for other things. I'll even with, let's say you and I are at a card show together, and we're looking at, oh man, I like this and you like that. Hey, let's bundle them together and see what we can get together. Now we have more leverage together. I did that at the Burbank show a couple of weeks ago with some Willie Mays card. My other buddy Andy wanted a Willie Mays card too, and we negotiated and were able to get a better deal together than we would have separately. So again, bundling either by yourself or with other people is always a smart thing to try to do, because again, it just gives you more leverage.
Yeah, so I agree, and I'll tell you an experience that I've had a few times where I think sometimes it matters how many you're bundling. So I've gone
Sure.
in and I've said to a dealer, "I want these two cards. Let's just make up a price here, $50 each. So the total would be $100. Would you do 70 for the two of them?" And the dealer says, "Nope, I would take 90." And I say, "Well, I'd do 70. I go to 75 at the most." And they say, "No, I won't go below 90." So I'll put one of them away and I'll say, "Would you do 35 for this one?" And they say, "Yes." And then I go around the show and I come back and I pick up the one that I didn't get in that bundle. And I say, "Would you do 35 for this?" And they say, "Yes." And so now I've gotten these two cards for 70 when they wouldn't go below 90 when I tried bundling them.
That is great. Um, do they not ever recognize? Like, is it not?
No, because it's been 45 minutes and they've probably seen 100 people. I don't know. It doesn't work if it's one of the regular dealers I buy from because they know
Sure,
me.
sure. Plus, you have a pretty forgettable face, so that
That's
makes
right.
sense.
Yeah.
You look like every other card collector out there. Middle-aged white guy with a beard. Oh wait, that's and we have the same hairline. So
Hey now.
well, you have, yeah, uh,
So
it's okay.
what I think I go up to tables and I make eye contact with the dealer and I say, "Hey, good morning. How's it going?" And I think just that little tiny connection takes me no time whatsoever, takes me no effort. And I think, maybe I'm wrong, they appreciate that because a lot of people just walk up to a table, look, and then keep going.
Right.
And some dealers I'll ask, "What are you moving today? What's working?" It's also tougher to negotiate when on cards that they're moving a lot, like Aaron Judge rookies. in September of 2022, probably you're not going to negotiate a lot on those.
True. Great point. Yeah,
Uh,
that's the good thing about vintage is there's nothing happening currently that's going to necessarily change the dynamic of that card in terms of their on the field performance or an injury or anything like that. So that does help for sure uh, in negotiating on vintage. But any other quick points you want to make? We've run our half hour and we're going to try to stay on time.
Okay, one more. So if I go up to a dealer and they have a lot of graded cards, ultra modern graded cards, and then they have a small selection of raw, ungraded cards, raw cards, ultra modern, I always ask them, did you send these in for grading? Because in all likelihood, if they have a table of graded cards and a small amount of raw, they sent those in for grades and they came back lower than they expected.
Right.
And the dealers are always honest. I've had several dealers say to me, yes. I say, well, what happened? They came back a 6 and I cracked it. Okay. Then I'll pay you 20% of comps.
Right.
They never do it though. But that's one thing to watch out for.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I always also like my last point will be if you see a table, because you just made me think of this with a whole lot of modern stuff, or they have a bunch of basketball or soccer, and then they have the random baseball vintage card that they probably got in some deal as a throw in or something. That's a card that if you're wanting that card,
Yeah,
they might have a little more room. They're just trying to get rid of it and they don't want to take a bath on it, but you can definitely probably get a little more leverage with that when that's not really their thing, right?
exactly.
That's always a good
100%.
thing to look for too. So I hope you guys learned something about negotiating, or at least, uh, again, I think a lot of people do it, but I do think there are some that don't. And so it's funny when I'm with people at shows and they're walking around with me and they're like, how do you get all these deals? And I'm like, I just ask. Like,
Yeah.
what's the worst someone can say to you? No. Okay.
Yep.
That's kind of the end story. And if you're not willing to take a no, uh, man, you're just going to end up paying more money all the time. And
Right.
we don't have to. You don't have to pay more money all the
Yeah.
time.
And if you buy 100 cards in a year, let's say, and you pay $10 extra for each card, there's $1,000.
Right. Yeah. It can add up for sure over time. You can even see it at a show if you have a certain budget, at a show, $1,000, let's say, or $500 at a show. It's always a game with me. How many great cards can I get for this money? I always play this game internally of let's go see what we can do with this. You
Yep.
know, I mean, I'll negotiate on any. If a card's $10, I'll try to get 5, and I'll
Yep.
usually get it. So and if it's not, do I really want it that bad? I mean, I don't know. So hopefully, Mike and I gave you some good tips, some things to think about, maybe incorporate into your buying of sports cards. And yeah, again, have fun with it, right?
For sure. I have a blast with it.
Yeah, just have a blast negotiating. See how good of a deal. Leave the table bragging to your friends how great of a deal you got. All
Yep.
right, guys, that's it for us on Hobby Think Tank this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we'd love to hear comments about what you think, what you use, anything that we said that you do use, other things that we didn't say. Would love to hear those and hear from you. Thanks for watching. Talk to you guys soon. Keep collecting.